Good morning, Commissioner. How are you? Just want to ask you a few questions about some transportation projects on southern Long Island, if that's okay?
Sure.
So the first involves State Route 878, and I'm sure you have a lot, it's a big state and a lot of roads to deal with. 878 connects the Five Towns area and a good part of the Long Beach Barrier Island with Queens, JFK Airport, and the rest of New York City, and it's the number one complaint I guess I received in my term so far involves the congestion and the flooding on Route 878. A lot of people spend a lot of time either repairing their cars after driving on it, stuck in traffic, or stuck in floods. And the first question I had for you before I get into the road itself is about state priority roads. How do you go about determining what road gets priority status and what doesn't? And then I'll ask specifically about this one.
Well, I think we do a historical overview and look at where roads have been impacted by extreme events, such as the one that you're mentioning, with flooding. This might be an opportunity with the program I outlined early on, which was the extreme weather program that the governor's promoting in this budget as well. So we try to do a thoughtful analysis of where these particular roadways are that may not just be impacted by extreme weather events, flooding in the example that you cited, but also in road conditions, traffic counts, etc.
Sure, and after Hurricane Sandy, the fact of 878 being a key evacuation route was really highlighted for people, and it's scary. So I brought a photo I blew up just to show you what happens on a day where there's just regular rain. This wasn't a storm, there was no prayer. You would have heard on the news rain tomorrow. And this is what you get on a regular rainy afternoon. And you could obviously see that this is to the consternation of a lot of taxpayers who don't understand why this has been this way for so long.
Right.
And
is that ponding on the left-hand side?
Yes.
Okay.
What we have as a result, unfortunately, is this is a symbol for a lot of people beyond their driving trouble. It's a symbol of government failure. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that you have two different regions of DOT intersecting right there between Nassau or Long Island and the city. You have the county having part of the roadway that kind of is right around there too, and so it's difficult. What I was able to unearth was DOT did a study on congestion in the area and flooding a few years ago, just in 2000, I believe, 11 or 12. And I've worked with some of your regional directors on it, but it's kind of gotten buried in the attic, so to speak. And I would appreciate if you could look at it and give it some attention for a relatively modest sum, expanding a lane in one direction or the other. I think some great improvements could be made, and I think because it's an evacuation route and because it's gotten inattention for so long, making the flooding and the congestion a priority would be much appreciated by a lot of Long Islanders.
Okay. And did you say that was 2012 you thought that study was?
Yeah, I have the study. I could pass it on to your staff if you like.
Yeah, we'll definitely take a look. I'll get back to you.
Okay, thank you. The second thing is I'm sure you appreciate when politicians ask for funds for a program, and then when you're doing the program, complain about the chaos it causes in the area. I'll try not to do that. You are investing money to repair the Loop Parkway drawbridge, which is the eastern end of the barrier island up, and it's a needed repair, and that's appreciated. But my understanding is that it will be shut down for entire weekends in the upcoming year. And I just ask that you pay attention to that to try to minimize the impact it will cause. There'll be thousands of people in my area who will have to take a tremendous detour just to get off the island on certain weekends, so making sure we minimize the impact of that is appreciated, but I do appreciate you modernizing our bridges, and
Sure.
I thank you for that.
And I appreciate that. And look, we're going to have to shut that down for the weekend to get the work done that's got to be done. There's going to be some disruption. But what we will make sure is that we are giving as much advance notice, to folks so they know where the proper ways will be to avoid that closure during the time of construction.
Okay. And look, I'm not an engineer, but if you could just make sure that those closures are absolutely necessary, that'd be appreciated as well.
Okay, sure.
And lastly, I drove up to Albany this morning and heard apocalyptic weather reports about coastal flooding this weekend. And actually, after having lived through Irene and Sandy, take that seriously. So I just ask that you spend some time this week considering how that will impact coastal areas in our region and help us be prepared in case the flooding is more serious than we'd like.
Right, and just so everybody knows, we've been meeting. They're meeting right now on it. We've been in discussions since yesterday with New York Responds, Homeland Dishes, and other emergency service providers, coordinating efforts. We're tracking the storm to see what happens. Just know that we have all of our salt sheds are fully up. They're full on Long Island. We have plenty of equipment and manpower, and we're prepared to respond.
You know, thank you. The governor, and I appreciate that. The Governor's Office of Storm Recovery has worked with our communities to come up with coastal mitigation projects, sometimes very involved projects that cost a lot of money, and we are very excited for that, but they're not there yet. And obviously that's not your department, but the point is we are almost in many cases no more better prepared for flooding than we were the day before Sandy. So, you know, please keep that in mind in making your preparation.
Yeah, and I will, and I have some familiarity with that from my previous career, and you're correct. There's been a lot of, you know, with the erosion of the coastal seagrasses in particular, that acted as kind of a protective barrier. So I know the requisite agencies, DEC, EFC, and others are working with EPA to secure funding to really make sure that those protection barriers are in place.
Okay, thank you. I look forward to working with you on these projects. Take care.
Thank you.